Everyone, welcome into this Tuesday, a wet Tuesday for a lot of folks. Coming into work this morning, that rain was coming down.
I wish I had my rain jacket, but if you're waking up now and headed out the door within the metro, it should be good, John.
Right.
You shouldn't have to get that umbrella.
Yeah, if you're normal and wake up at like 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning, you didn't even know it rained. Now, it was pouring, though, at around 2 to 3 in the morning, and we got about 1/4 of an inch around the cities, depending on where you're at. But that's fine. Actually, kind of nice to get 1/4 of an inch of rain. It doesn't really negatively impact us. That would have the rain down in La Crosse. They dropped multiple inches down here, and that same area this afternoon is going to get another inch. So that would be bad. We will get mainly mist here. Mankato might see a little more in the cities, but then you see Alexandria, Bemidji, and Brainerd. You guys are pretty clear right now. Metro is now just a couple sprinkles. That's about it. Maybe a few peaks of sun, getting up into the upper 70s. Actually a decent day. Can't rule out an evening passing shower, but most of the state is going to be dry north of the cities. Brainerd, Alexandria, Bemidji, a mainly dry day. That's why it's a little bit warmer up there in the Brainerd Lakes region. Cece, good morning.
Good morning and happy Tuesday to you all. Live look here, South Metro 35W, not too far from Burnsville. Actually, you can see their roads pretty quiet in that stretch. And then we have Highway 65 up in the North Metro near the Ham Lake area. Good morning if you're waking up there. We're seeing some wet, mostly damp roads now at this point. Things are drying out there. So if you're headed out the door right now, you should be good to go. Over this next half hour, I will be talking about drive times, also some construction projects mostly happening along 494 here if you're traveling between Bloomington and Richfield. So just stay tuned for that. Alicia.
All right, Cece, thank you. We'll check back in a bit. Now to that breaking news that we've been tracking out of St. Paul right now.
And police just confirmed with us they're investigating a deadly shooting in the Payne-Phelan neighborhood. Take a look at the map here. It happened in just the last 10 hours at a home on York Avenue, a few blocks away from St. Paul's East Side YMCA. Michelle Beck is live in St. Paul with new details about what happened out there. Michelle.
Yeah, Jason, Alicia, since I last saw you, we moved on over to the back of the house. You can see the backyard here right now. It looks somewhat like an ordinary house. If you had no idea this was a secure scene, in the last 15 minutes, we saw detectives walking on over to the surveillance camera at the top corner of this home. Hopefully that caught what happened here, because at this point, police have not arrested or identified the shooter. Now, in this video, you can see cops all over the Payne-Phelan neighborhood, including on someone's yard with a part of the scene covered by those black curtains. St. Paul police say they found a man with gunshot wounds when around 10 hours ago they were called to a home near this corner of York and Mendota. First responders tried to save the victim, but they pronounced him dead on scene. And guys, at this point, we are working to learn, we still have to learn from the medical examiner the identity, the name of the victim, but we also need to learn from police, again, who the shooter is. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, we'll hear from police about their process they are taking right now to identify that shooter. Guys, back to you.
A lot to sort out there. Michelle, thank you very much. And last night's shooting happened just a few blocks from where another man was shot and killed last week. In the last 12 hours, St. Paul police say they made a second arrest in this case. 30-year-old Lawrence Phelps is now charged with second-degree murder in connection to the death. Police also arrested a 17-year-old last week.
We have new details on breaking news that we brought to you on Sunrise yesterday morning out of Crookston, Minnesota, which is about an hour north of Fargo. We now know the BCA is investigating what led up to a Crookston police officer shooting and killing a man at a homeless shelter. According to police, officers were called to the shelter Sunday night because of a fight. When officers arrived, they say that there was a man being combative and not following commands. At some time during the incident, one of the officers shot the man. The name of the officer involved has not been released.
In just a few hours, Governor Walz will visit the collapsing Rapidan Dam near Mankato for an update on flood conditions and recovery efforts. This all comes as we're finally seeing high water levels start to recede. Here's some flooding updates from other parts of the state. Federal funding is on the way for 22 Minnesota counties affected by flooding. The money approved by President Biden is available to state, tribal, and some local governments and local nonprofits to reimburse for repairs and cleanup. More counties could be added as crews continue to assess damage. In Stillwater, floodwaters on the St. Croix River appear to be receding. The river crested around 24 hours ago at just over 88 feet in moderate flood stage. Late last week, the city postponed its July 4th celebration, saying it won't be able to host fireworks and festivities because of flooding at Lowell Park. In St. Paul, the Mississippi River has fallen nearly a foot since cresting over the weekend, but the river is still in major flood stage. And at Valley Fair, water has gone down 3 feet since the Minnesota River crested on Saturday. The main parking lot is still flooded, so the park is shuttling visitors from other lots. 3 rides are still closed. Its July 4th fireworks are canceled, and the park is running on adjusted hours.
Your time 6:06, developing right now. City park workers in Minneapolis are on the verge of walking off the job.
It could happen in a matter of hours, leaving some parks possibly understaffed ahead of a busy 4th of July. Audrey's live with the latest on where negotiations stand and what the impacts of a strike would look like. Audrey.
Yeah, Jason, Alicia, you may be wondering why now? Why ahead of July 4th weekend? Well, that's because the 10-day strike notice filed by LiUNA Local 363 has officially expired, capping off about 7 months of negotiation and still no contract to show for it. Now, any potential strike would affect about 35% of Minneapolis Park workforce members. That includes 220, I should say, year-round employees and 114 seasonal workers. Now, the park board tells us that in their final contract offer to the union, they included a pay increase of about 10% that would stair-step out over 3 years. The union argues that that's still not enough. They say their top pay scale still lags behind that of nearby suburbs who pay their workers, they say, more for doing essentially the same job. All in all, in the end, 94% of the collective bargaining unit did vote to strike. The union reps say that that is far from the goal, though.
A strike is always the last resort. We've been bargaining in good faith for nearly 7 months, and following our strike vote, we returned to mediation with a revised proposal that would significantly reduce the overall cost for the park board.
And the park board says that they have also been negotiating in good faith, but they say if the strike happens today, they're going to have to scale back some of their park services in order to make sure that things are safe for visitors. Exactly what will that look like, though? I'll have more details on that coming up in about a half hour. But for now, I'll send things back to you.
Audrey, thank you. We are tracking reaction this morning to a major legal win for former President Donald Trump. In the last 24 hours, the Supreme Court decided presidents are entitled to immunity from prosecution for official conduct while in office. In the 6-3 ruling along ideological lines, the justices did say the president can be prosecuted for private, personal actions. It's unclear exactly what constitutes an official versus unofficial act. They sent the case back to a lower court to decide that. Now, the opinion makes it highly unlikely that Trump will go to trial before the November election on charges that he tried to illegally overturn the 2020 election. In response, President Biden addressed the American people, calling the ruling dangerous and saying it changed a fundamental constitutional idea in the United States.
This nation was founded on the principle that there are no kings in America. Each of us is equal before the law. No one is above the law, not even the President of the United States.
Trump's legal team is already moving to have his hush money conviction overturned in New York. They say based on the high court's ruling, evidence from his time in office can't be used against him. He's supposed to be sentenced in 9 days.
If you're in need of a new bike, set your alarm.